Hey, y'all, this is the What I Wish I'd Said podcast for yesterday's message from Pastor Seth about David. The content of it being basically we want to go do things for God. We want to think of David in like he's killing Goliath, he's doing these big, audacious, bold things for God. But what came first? It was like kind of like David's origin story, right? Before he was a warrior king, what was happening in his heart when he was a shepherd, what was molding him, and it was the Spirit of God, right? It was like he was becoming a what would be described as a man after God's own heart, and that can jack us up in all kinds of ways, right? Like, how can a man who had an affair, who lied about it, who committed adultery, who murdered, how can that person be called a man after God's own heart? And I think what I want to tell you today is that, again, God looks on the inside when man looks on the outside. Not that those things are good. We probably should not do those things, right? But we are going to fall short. And we tend to see people in a moment when God tends to see them in a movement. He knows that there's a process. He knows that there's a tomorrow, and we tend to just take a picture right now. In that snapshot, we catch people in their worst moments, or maybe we catch ourselves in our worst moments, and then we judge ourselves or we judge them, right? So when we hear that David was a man after God's own heart, we want to think, well, that must mean later on when he had repented and gotten all these things correct, God called him that. But no, he saw him as that the whole time. There's a man named Brennan Manning. Maybe you've heard of him. He wrote a lot of books, but one is called The Ragamuffin Gospel. And he was used in a mighty way by God to just bring this message of grace to the church. He also had a pretty severe addiction to alcohol. In fact, he would sometimes go preach and teach and then go back to a hotel room and just drink until he passed out. Understandably, people would ask him questions like, how can you be so attached to God, but yet so addicted to something like alcohol? And he would just shake his head and say, this was his exact quote, these things happen. It's hard to see how those can go together because we're so performance oriented. But grace looks past the performance and sees the heart. And I want to encourage you today, those of you who think, would God ever call me a man or a woman after God's own heart? Yes, despite what you've done, even maybe while you're doing what you're doing. Now, people around you are not going to understand it. We will not get it. We struggle with that, but God sees the heart. And so today I want to encourage you to remember that God pursues you. This is going a lot longer than I expected it would, but I want to close with Psalm 139 verses 7 through 12 from the Message translation. This is what it says. Is there any place that I can go to avoid your spirit, to be out of your sight? If I climb to the sky, you're there. If I go underground, you're there. If I flew on morning's wings to the far western horizon, you would find me in a minute. You're already there waiting. And then I said to myself, oh, he even sees me in the dark. At night, I'm immersed in the light. It's a fact. Darkness isn't dark to you. Night and day, darkness and light, they're all the same to you. What is the psalmist saying? He's saying you can run, but you can't hide. And we think of that in negative terms, like God's going to get you. But he's with you. Jesus has secured that. And when we follow Jesus, we choose to be apprentices under Jesus, then that means the Holy Spirit has taken a hold of us and he's with us on the good days, on the bad days, and on the really, really ugly days. He is pursuing you. So like I said at the end of that message yesterday, we think of David as a man after God's own heart, but I want you to remember that God's heart was after the man, and he's still after you today. I hope that encourages you, and I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.